Awesome. Hi, everybody. A fellow Substack Grow member, so very excited to be here. And basically, I want to talk to you about how I, someone who is absolutely not a graphic designer, have been able to bring in a lot of design elements that I think help break up my Substack in a way that makes it more visually engaging. Part of the reason why that I think is so important for me is my subject matter is food. I think also to call back to Casey's original questions about thinking about what type of publisher you are. For me, Above the Fold is more of an entity type of project. It's not centering myself as the writer or journalist, but it's more centering the subject matter of Dumplings with a mission of really elevating the value of the really intense labor that goes into making these very beautiful, edible works of art and talking to the people who make them and specialize in them. So to start, Canva is what I use to do all of my designs. I'll explain to you a bit how mine is a little bit more specialized in that I worked with a graphic designer to basically give me a really flexible toolkit. We uploaded into Canva so that once she finished her side of things, I could kind of take it and run it and not need to go back and forth with her all the time. But you can use Canva to do a lot of really awesome stuff in Substack without going to a graphic designer. Let's say, you don't have the budget for that. And Canva is basically a graphic design platform, very user-friendly, and there's two basic versions of it. There's the free platform, which gives you access to a ton of different functions that are really complementary with Substack. So you can design your own banners, your own logos, your own image frames, slugs, which is what I use for, let's say you have different kinds of stories repeating in one newsletter, you can kind of tag them in different ways. And if you also are feeling too intimidated by starting from scratch, and that's not really something that you're passionate about, they have tons of different templates that you can start from. If you see anything that you find appealing, you can even just change up some of the colors, and you can also work from there. There's also ways to take the graphics you're already designing for your Substack and use them for social media. So you can put them on Instagram or anything like that. I use the pro version of Canva. It's something that I would recommend if visuals are really important to you and part of your Substack. It lets you do a lot more functionality in terms of resizing images. You can import custom fonts if you don't want to use the fonts that already exist within Canva. There's plenty of other advanced stuff I haven't even quite gotten to yet, but it also does let you download transparent images, which means if you're designing a logo and the background is white, you can download it so that all you're really uploading is the small logo. If you're not sure if you want Pro, it's $12 a month or a little over $100 a year. There's a 30-day free trial, and I would really encourage people to just play around with it, and you can decide if it's even right for you. And if not, then you can stick with free. So using Canva to personalize, let's, my design goals, sorry about that. So I had some very specific things I wanted to accomplish with design with Above the Fold. My background is in magazine writing and editing, and to get back to that entity topic, I just very much like having visuals be very linked to the writing and the words that I'm creating as well. So I wanted a way to be able to do that, in addition to the tools that were already available to me in the back end of Substack. Above the Fold as a name is a reference to above the fold newspaper placement, which means, the most important stories of the day go in that above the fold slot in the front fold of a newspaper. And I wanted to be able to nod to that in the way that I designed this publication in different elements or references. And then lastly, as I said before, the subject matter, food, was something I really wanted to show with visuals, but, I'm producing this by myself. I don't have a photo budget. So I knew that I was going to basically be able to work with whatever images I had access to, which meant whatever my interview subjects were willing to share with me, which in the case of this, these were the dumplings made by my first interview subject, Sandy Ho of Sanditas. If anyone lives in LA, I highly recommend going there. But this is basically a really beautiful, stunning image, and it's probably more of an outlier of the types of things I would have to work with. Additionally, I wanted to make sure that I was being really respectful of any image limitations. Let's say I was being provided with an image that was shot by a photographer. They don't want their image messed with in any way, shape, or form. I still wanted some ways to add extra visual interest to those without modifying the image itself. So the first solution, and what I explained before that I did, was kind of a hybrid approach where I use Canva, this lockup where there's two photos side by side, there's a label underneath them, and there's a button. I created that myself by just simply dragging my elements from the left over to the right, using those custom dimensions that I knew I was going to need for the Substack. Those individual small buttons that say volume, I type in, 1, 2, 3 each time. Those were custom designed by working with a graphic designer. Again, if that's not something that you want to have that customized, you could also create your own just from scratch in the basic free version. So that was a way that I could solve 2 different kinds of handout images. One came from a website, one came from Instagram. I made sure I had permission to use them, but I was able to kind of splice it together and still make a unique visual out of what I had to work with. The second thing was kind of speaking to what Casey was talking about in iconography. Dumplings are a topic that is so diverse throughout the entire world, and so many different things can kind of be in the world of a dumpling. And I didn't want to confine it to, the shape that's even in the dumpling emoji. So I went more in a shape realm with every possible type of permutation that a dumpling shape could take. But I wanted it to be a little more abstract, and I wanted to be able to have elements that I could rearrange in lots of different ways to break up the text as I wanted to. So as you can see on the bottom left, I just pulled a selection of those little icons I worked with the designer to make into a little strip. And I use that as basically a way to make an imported Instagram look more custom, even though I was just pulling in an image from someone's Instagram. On the right, I did an interview where it was an as told to style, meaning the whole thing was in the voice and words of the subject I interviewed. So to break up the paragraphs and also reinforce the direct quote aspect of it, I used these little double teardrops and was able to put it in a wider dimension and then import it into the interface. And then the third thing I knew I wanted to do was some sort of cohesive framing device. I think this is something that probably a lot of people will run into, where you don't have, unless you're working with a professional photographer or you're taking all of your images yourself, you're going to be working with a really diverse set of imagery in terms of all different quality, et cetera. On the right is an example of 3 images that were provided to me by a chef I interviewed, and they happened to work with a professional photographer. So those images are really beautiful, but I still wanted something to kind of set them apart. But on the left is an example of an image that was provided to me. You can see it's pretty small, but what the arrow is leading from is he had taken a photo of a photo that was sitting on a table. And I wanted to find a way to actually just kind of level that up a little bit. So I was able to remove the background using the Canva background remover tool and drag some of my small little elements on the different corners, just again, to give it more of a visual consistency with the rest of the Substack. And again, also just give it a bit more of a brighter look and feel than what I had to work with. And the last thing, I know, obviously, there is the pull quote tool that already exists within Substack, but I also wanted to find another way to make the text more scannable. And that's something else that you can do in Canva, where you can take quotes that you're really passionate about or you really want to give a much bigger presence to, and put that in as a pull quote, really large, download it, and then upload it into your Substack. And then I was able, as you can see, I ended up using this little thin shape I had as just a separator on either side of the quote.